Hi there, welcome back to my full disclosure channel. My guest today is an incredible being. I'm so excited. It's been absolutely years and years of stalking this man. Finally, I have him on my screen. Welcome, Dannion Brinkley. Woo!
Thank you for having me, Danny. It's nice to be with you.
I'm so excited, honestly. And our beautiful friend, Dr. Christiane Northrup, was actually the
Thank you.
one that got me a direct email to you. So I'm so grateful to that lovely lady too.
Not only that, I love her. I think that I just love her. I when you find brave people who are scientists and their bravery is based on the same science that's being used to try to stop them, and you watch the skill at which she graciously and brilliantly maneuvers through it, you cannot help but love, appreciate, and admire her.
She's absolutely beautiful and so full of life. And her laugh, you can hear her laugh from the back of the room. She's just got the best laugh ever, hasn't she? She's just lovely. We love you, Dr. Christiane. But you know, every bloody time I have her on my channel, I get a strike. And we go, right, let's not say this word, let's not say that word. But she's so dangerous, to the world and YouTube because she tells the truth. She unfortunately, has to really maneuver some of the things she says, but God love her.
Oh, but listen, Danny, we come in different ways that we look at rendering the truth and bringing truth to people. People need little sparks of things to hold on to. Christiane is brave, okay? And she's also smart. But in the end, no matter what, the science backs her. What she says and what she looks at and what she does and what her products do work.
Hmm.
Okay. So the rest of that just becomes people's garbage.
That's
What
right.
you're doing in your show is creating avenues for people to become aware of topics that's out there. And the realization of that, if we're not alone, and if we're not alone, how does that change things? And then from how is it not alone to looking at who are we then? And where do we fit in that particular scenario of there being more than just us? I think that's pretty wonderful myself.
It's pretty wonderful. Now let's get to you, Mr. Dannion Brinkley. I mean, because quite frankly, you've been dead a few times. Now, how did that first start happening, please?
Well, I grew up in South Carolina. I wasn't a big religious person. I was sports and tough guy, Marine Corps, fist fighter, all that stuff that it makes a testosterone driven adrenaline freak. It's character. And then one afternoon, I was sitting on the edge of the bed talking on the telephone, and lightning, it was a grounded line, and lightning came down the phone line. And it went down my spine, and it welded the nails of the heels of my shoes to the floor, threw me in the air, suspended me in the air, and slammed me back down on the bed. I am burning and I'm on fire. I cannot see and I cannot move because there was a ball of fire or a flash that came through the room when the lightning hit that blinded me. I wore welder's glasses for 2 years after this.
Gosh.
And I'm burning and I'm on fire and I cannot move. I have no idea what happened to me. Then all of a sudden I lift up out of my body. I can see. I'm not in pain and I can move. The three things I was not capable of doing in that body, I was now doing. So I looked at myself. What people never take into consideration, Danny, is when this happened to me, there was no such word, there was no such thing as near death, near death experience. Raymond Moody had not written his landmark book that coined that term. His book came out, it was published in 1975 in July, and I was struck by lightning in September of 1975. So the there was nowhere in the world except a few hundred copies of a book in on St. Simon's Island that had the near death experience term. So I had no way to relate to it. But through the years, I now understand so much about it from going through uh, open heart surgery, struck by lightning, dead for 28 minutes, which led to open heart surgery, which led to complications that led to brain surgery, which led to complications that led to open heart surgery again, all from being struck by lightning. You know, it slowly is killing me. It's doing a good job, but you know, so far I'm winning and it's losing. but but when you look back and you see that to go through that was also an educational process, Danny, so that I would be able to defend the things that I believe in.
Hmm.
I believe that the battle for the souls of humankind will be fought in healthcare. This is what I have said for 50 years.
Wow.
And it will come into play now
Hmm.
between the last pandemic and the next one. And it's the next 5 years. All of the things that come into play is just that. And the next 5 years are the most critical 5 years in human history. I
Dan,
mean,
can I ask you a question or a few thousand? Let's just start with one. Well, I've got two. I'll ask you one first. You just mentioned the pandemic. Do you honestly think that the dark hats on this planet that think nothing of us, do you truly think they're going to create and get away with another pandemic?
I believe that based on, see, the legacy of me, Danny, is that when I was going through this near death experience in 1975, I was given these what turned out to be future events.
Hmm.
Now, if you keep doing the same thing that you keep doing, this is what's going to happen. And then I saw what I call as a 12 boxes. It's in my book, Saved by the Light. Okay. And these were the things that I saw that became future events. Okay. And the accuracy of those future events are unmistakable. There's nowhere to go. You know, when I went to publish this book, and HarperCollins said, they said, well, because the book was, I wrote these things down in 1977 after I could talk and write and convalesced over a 2 year period. I wrote down what the visions were. And in 1993, when I wrote Saved by the Light, I put those in there for one reason, because the 20 years had passed, Danny, 18 years had passed, and so many of these things were coming true. A couple were so close to the publishing date that the publisher didn't want to put them in the book because it would have messed up. If one of them went wrong, it would mess up book sales. Well, I
Wow.
said, let me tell you something, everybody. I said, this happened to me when I was freaking dead. This didn't happen to me when I stubbed my toe or anything like that. When you took me in there, it said patient unconscious, patient not breathing, no EKG. That's what it said. And in the course of that 28 minutes till they revived me, this happened. Well, all I told them was this: if this all this stuff comes true, that means there's a life after death. It wasn't that I was trying to be some swami or some guru or some futurist. It was, okay, here's the facts about it. Here's when I wrote it down. Here's what it is. Here's how it operates. All this stuff has come true. Anyone can go look at that 30-year-old book. It's all come true. For me, it means there's a life after death, which
Mhm.
is my goal. If you can believe that there is a life after death based on near-death experiences, then you are a step closer to understanding reality than you are without looking at that.
Mhm, mhm. May I ask you a question? Now, when you were this young, kind of hardcore, fist fighting, like you said, Marine man, um, do you think that your life had got to a point of a certain personality, a certain mind thought, a certain way of being that you needed a bit of a kick up the arse. Do you think that's why you got struck by lightning?
Well, I would have to probably say yes. I mean, it would have taken something like that, you know. We've got to remember, you're in the aftermath of the Vietnam War. There's a lot of adrenaline and a lot of jockeying for position in Indochina and the rise of China and what is happening in the Southeast Asian position and what's happening in South and Central America and all the new repositioning of the American empire. Okay, so there was a lot of things going on that most people never know about. But the things that were going on that was remaking the reality of the empire of America because of what happened in Vietnam. So I I would not have thought. I would have thought that I would have gone toward war. Uh, and the mindset that I look at prior uh, to being struck by lightning and realizing that we're all spiritual beings was that I would be when I would look at war, but I'd look at analysis of intelligence, analysis of information. So it would have taken something like being struck by lightning
Hmm.
to all of a sudden to go to realize that I first always people say, Dannion, what do you after 50 years of looking at this, because the near death experience is 50 years old this year. That term that's redefined culture,
Hmm.
it's redefined culture. It has put such a dent in the cultural reality of how people perceive death. And I was there from the very beginning.
Hmm.
I was with Raymond in the very first weeks of the story of what became the near death experience. And I spent 20 years with Raymond, watching how this and supporting how this would unfold. Because when you stop and you say, okay, 50 years, then what would be the cultural legacy of the near death experience? You know, what would it be after 50 years existing and being a part? It's a part of the culture, it's part of social, it's everything. Everybody uses it as jargon or points of reference, right? So here's what I would say: you do not die. Cultural legacy of the near death experiences, you do not die. Anyway, anyhow, anyone ever told you that you were. Okay? It does not happen. And not only that, you will never die. It doesn't function. It's not going to happen. It's the dumbest thing that anybody could ever think. We're never going to die. It's ridiculous to even think. Okay. Now, and then number two, 95% of everybody who ever has a near death experience says they lift up out of their body and they watch their body and they see it in the bed, in the car wreck, on the street. They see their body. Well, what I've never realized, Danny, that people don't stop and realize this: you are not that body. How can you be separated from something, be be quantitatively observing it and looking at it as if there is no connection between you and it? And if you ask anybody who said they floated above their body, did they feel the way I just described? The answer will be yes. Completely disassociated from it.
Hmm.
So that says you are not that body. People say, well, yeah, okay. Well, I've got to be this body and this and that. And I said, well, okay, well, let me think about this for a moment. That place that you're always so afraid of going, what's next, is a half a breath away. One half of a breath away.
Mm.
So if you're so connected to that body, When you let that half of breath out, you also leave because all the chemicals, all the cells, all the liver, the lungs, everything it takes to make that body function and that heartbeat left with a half a breath. So the moment a person stops long enough to realize they're not that body, but they need it, to perform the spiritual task and the task they've chosen for themselves in this dimensional reality.
Mhm.
They have to have it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
cannot explain.
Yeah, the vehicle is needed. Absolutely.
And then number three, you are an electrical being. Those are the three things that if you believe anything about the near death experience, then what would being, I've been a hospice volunteer for 40, almost 49 years. I've been with 2,018 people going from this world to the next world, and 358 people taking their last breath.
Wow. Wow. Um, I want to go there, but I also want to go back a step because I want to know what was life like for you growing up? As a little boy, where did you grow up? What were your parents like? What was your raising up? What was the thinking? Was there religious thinking? Did you have spiritual experiences before you were hit by lightning on that day?
That might as well be outer space talk. Absolutely not. I grew up in the perfect family. I grew up in a perfect family. I was um, oh, the middle child. Okay. And I grew up in a perfect brother, and a perfect sister, and a perfect mother, and a perfect father. And I grew up in business with my parents. I grew up in the grocery business, and um, it was just perfect. But when you live in the South in America and you live in the South, there's only a few ways out of the mindset or the reality to escape. You played sports, or you joined the military, or you became Elvis Presley. Well, I
Mm.
really wasn't going to become Elvis. So you look for a way out, and I saw the Marine Corps as a way out because I didn't want to play sports because I saw all the things that went on in sports, and I didn't want to. It was about steroids, when steroids were legal back then, and I just wasn't going to do it. So I grew up as a good kid. I was a badass. I mean, I thought that hitting people in the face is how you got things accomplished. You didn't have to talk long. You didn't have to listen to too much. You hit them in the face. Then you start discussing the issues. That was basically my nature.
Mm.
And I was good at it.
Mm. So you really were quite a hard man growing up at that level, at that stage of life.
Yeah.
Hmm. Did you
In
feel
more ways,
unhappy?
in more ways I will not describe them.
Yeah. Like, did it bring you happiness? Were you a happy person?
Well, when I think about it in its deepest spiritual sense, how could I have been? But when I was thinking about it then, sure, I was Superman, tough guy. You know, it's the '60s, early '70s. America is reformulating itself. A whole movement of America was happening, and the Beatles were here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Goodness, my goodness. Are you comfortable to talk a little bit about the Vietnam War? Because as you well know, the amount of real history that's redacted, hidden, rewritten, names are given Nobel Prizes that should never be anywhere near them. We've all been lied to as a global family. Do you want to share a little bit, and again, only if you're comfortable, why did the Vietnam War start, in your opinion? What good came out of it? And the stories we hear about the soldiers being sent out on LSD, for example, or to hunt ETs, did you come across any of that as truth?
Well, you know, when you grow up in that era, let's say you grew up in that era, and you work on projects that are very compartmentalized. You only do what you're supposed to do, and that's it. And you don't want to know what anything else is or how it works or what it is, Then Vietnam had to do with Indo-Asia and the French losing control. It was French Indochina. Communism, quote unquote, was growing, quote unquote, and the ability to be captured by the Chinese, and by the Chinese because of the Ho Chi Minh leading toward the Chinese as a way from the West, which represented the French. Okay, so we've been there since 1954. It's when we first went there. And the thing that people never understand about the Vietnamese people, and I always admired them, okay, because they had beat the British and they beat the French, and they were beating us. And after they beat us, they beat the Chinese. So all you could do is just be appreciative of that. But all that became a way. The Gulf of Tonkin never happened. All this stuff that people say, these things never happen. They're not even real events. They are created and manufactured so that you can move the narrative to a certain place. Well, I stand, Danny, and I deal with death and dying. So if I say that the battle for the souls of humankind would be fought in healthcare, it becomes imperative that people pay attention to their health. They must pay attention to their personal responsibility for their health. They must do it because there is where the ultimate ID is. There is where the ultimate integration of technologies, where if you are now learning in basic medicine, Pfizer, that you are an electrical being. This is being discovered every day. There are patents given out every day that describe the fact that you're an electrical being, so that they can take a pill and put a pill inside of you. You take that pill, and that pill would release the amount of drugs that you need based on an Alzheimer's patient or a patient that has dementia, or how do you give this? And it's all done electrically. It's all done electrically. These are the patents that are coming out now. So when you realize that you're an electrical being, and you realize that this body, you have to, it's not only your body, but it's your environment too.
Mhm,
These things become important to you as a spiritual being. It
mhm.
becomes imperative. So if you're in the growth cycle business, people, and you're trying to find your way, remember, you're not going to die. It's not going to happen. You are not that freaking body. You are not it. You have to realize that you're not it, and you're an electrical being. So what is the big health kick? First, enjoying your food, celebrating how you got it, being thankful for how it sits before you and whoever created it, and ever how it came to where you get to taste, and to enjoy every single mouthful of gratitude, of appreciation, of thinking it in those terms. And then how can you convert it to electricity the fastest?
Mm.
What enzymes, what vitamins, what trace minerals do I have needed in my body so that I can take that food that I just enjoyed and convert it to electricity the fastest? If you're an electrical body and you're electrical, And the speed at which you convert it creates a whole nother way and level of consciousness of living and understanding how to sustain in this environment, in this world. I
Hmm.
can raise myself from the dead, Danny. I'm running out of chances at it, because I deplete my body. I deplete it. I deplete it because I make it do things that it normally would not do, but I make it do it because I understand it and I have a cause. I need people to believe in themselves.
Hmm.
Okay. And I have a saying, I say, David, if you had to look at life and all that you've been through with the thousands of people and all that you've suffered through yourself and what you suffer through now, watch. We are great, powerful, and mighty spiritual beings with dignity, direction, and purpose. The only thing that can ever go wrong from that point of view is we allow something to affect our dignity, which will skew our direction and our purpose. And most of the time, it's an opinion of ourself that's doing the most damage.
Very,
What people think of themselves is doing the most damage.
very, very good. I mean, briefly earlier, we were talking about things in our global environment, in all the work that you do, the work that I do, the realities that we've experienced and that we bring. And, again, the different personalities that have built up or built down or taken people out for whatever reason. And again, it comes to that, like the self-love, the self-respect, the unconditional self. And I say to people about, treat yourself like your best friend. How about that? And just try that. You'd never speak to your best friend the way you dare to speak to yourself. It's just kind of reprogramming, because what we find is people that are hurting so terribly and truly hating on themselves for whatever reason, they then are projecting out. They're not taking care of the pain inside of themselves. They're kind of deflecting out, and there's lots of so much kind of hassle and fighting and upset and attacking going on outside. And let's say the disclosure movement. But nobody really means it to the point of wanting to literally harm another person. Or most of the people I know fighting, or that I've squabbled with, let's say, there's no ill will. There's no harm. But it is definitely a deflection away from healing this and being this and loving this.
Keep you pulled outward. They
Yeah.
keep you pulled outward while you have celebrities and while you have all of this and while you pay them exorbitant amounts of money. And in the same town where you paid somebody $200 million, children are starving to death.
Oh.
Okay. There is where you know you're crazy. You're crazy. There's nobody, you can talk all you want, you can say everything you want to say, but you've gone crazy. All right. So when you see that outward pull, then it's not to go inward for the power, not to turn inward for the inspiration, because that's what I do. Turn in, because I know that I can move away from what I'm seeing outward. I can move away from it. And I use Stephen Halpern music, but I can move away from it. And I can set that place that I could go to, and I could be present with me. Okay, I could be present with me. And it's amazing how I figure out what to do with all the issues that I know I'm responsible for creating.
There you go.
Take responsibility, everybody. If you take responsibility for everything, even though it is not all your responsibility, it means that you chose not to miss anything as opposed to neglecting anything.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
There is so much deception. Wars are first. Vietnam had a lot to do with getting rid of weapons and introducing new weapons. It had a lot to do with that. And then what you did with all those old munitions, what did you do with that? And then how did you move it into other areas to support rebel forces or to support democracy against communism, which was the big red wave there? That was the mindset. Always remember, the term New Age was coined by Henry Kissinger.
Wow.
That
That's
is
a good reminder, yeah, where that came from. The New Age, the PSYOP, the psychological operation called New Age, insulting what's always been the ancient loving ways of all of us. Thank you for saying that.
and calling ISIS. This is European BS.
Hmm.
It was always Dasha. It never was ISIS until they decided to take the queen, the mystical queen of all of Egypt, the lore, biblical crusades. They decide to name the enemy ISIS.
Hmm.
That is that is arrogance and narcissism, Danny, that shows either a dying breed or a breed that knows they've won.
Hmm.
And then there are us. There's these shows. I stay in my box, but I'm an old man and I've been around. I've been in 94 countries and I've seen 6 war zones. I've been around and I look to see how reality operates, but I care about caregivers, the person that's taking care of that veteran.
Hmm.
And I care about the fact that so much the nature of how genocide is becoming a new tool of control and manipulation and acceptance. Okay, then that means there is grief and bereavement. That there are caregivers that are going to be needed, and so I stay in that mindset. I live there, and the stuff that people need to take, what you need to take every day, uh, to give your body what it takes. Why? Think of this. It takes 0.45 milliamps of voltage to cause the heart to beat.
Hmm.
So electricity is the meaning of life.
Hmm.
To breathe in, and for that 0.45 milliamps to spark and the heart to beat.
Hmm.
How many times per day has that before that 0.45 milliamps got to be there? That makes you an electrical being.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah. This is amazing, amazing. Listen, we've got a little bit of a tech issue. I'm just going to put us on pause for 1 second. Okay, so I have a question for you because we're getting into more of the obviously heavier stuff that's happening on our planet. And the ass hat Henry Kissinger, you mentioned the fact that he's the one that coined the phrase New Age, and they've been so manipulative, and the genociding has been very real for many, many, many years. If we put those dollops to the side, I want to focus back on you because I would like to know. When you were struck by lightning the very first time and you had all of those sensations in the body that you experienced and experiencing being out of the body, you mentioned briefly that you were in a 2 year recovery, recovering that body. What did that look like? Were you in bed? Were you in hospital? Who found you? How were you discovered once you were struck by lightning?
Well, my girlfriend was down. She was down the hall. She came down and saw me, and the phone had melted out of my hand.
My God.
And she'd gone next door, and the guy on the other end of the phone came straight away. TM came straight away, and he was a corpsman in the Navy, so he started to trying to resuscitate me. And Sandy had called the paramedics, and they were on their way. And I'm floating above watching it, and it was amazing to me because I had no way to relate to it, but I wasn't in pain. I could see, and I had no more use for any of that. Whatever it was and what it was all about, I didn't care about it. Okay, I didn't care about it. I knew everything would be okay. And then I watched them load me in the ambulance, and then I was in the ambulance, and the guy's got his little headsets on, and he's talking to the doctor, and I heard him say he's gone, And then I heard this sound, like this wistful sound, and I look over my left shoulder, and I look back down at myself, and I look over my left shoulder, and I start down this tunnel. And it is wistful, it's the right thing to do, right? And I come into this place, this no sensation, a subtle, feeling of comfort. The only way that you could describe it, let's say when you're a little kid and you are not quite secure in where you are, and dad puts his hand out and he takes your hand. And in the middle of all that world, you have dad's hand, or you have mom's hand, and the world is safe. It's a subtle feeling like that. That's the best way I could describe it. That utter sense of chaos is still there, or the movements is all still there, but I don't care. I have dad's hand, or I have mom's hand. So I was watching this and I saw my whole life pass before me. And this is the most important thing that comes from the near-death experience. This will happen to everybody. Ask anybody who's ever had one of these experiences, did they have a life review? And the importance of that life review will tell you how much of the truth they're telling you in the rest of their story. Do not believe everything you hear, anybody. You cannot. So you will see your whole life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama. You'll watch it from a second person point of view as though you were your own best friend. So you're not so harsh on yourself for the good stuff and the bad stuff. And then you literally will become every person you ever encounter. And you will feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person. That means no one gets away with anything. Nobody. And the universe is fair and just. There is a reason for all things. How it came into existence. How do you rectify it? How do you find balance and harmony in it? The systems are all there. See, knowing the panoramic life review, because sooner or later, this question comes to people. And I've watched them say it a million different kind of ways, Danny. I say it, if God couldn't come today and God sent me, in the life I just reviewed, what difference did me and God make? So I had a horrible first panoramic life review because I was just a bully. I was just and I was a narcissist, and I was all those things that make up tough guy, great, all that crap, to discover all of a sudden that none of that's even real. It's not even real. And I have to shift and change from that person. But when you discover that level, I became a hospice volunteer because if God couldn't come today, God sent me in the life I just reviewed, what difference did me and God make? Well, I was a Marine and I have been dead, and I understand war, and I understand being a veteran. So I went to the Veterans Administration and started dying with Marines. Then as I was dying with Marines, there were just too many of them. We were losing 2,200 a month. Then it was in the thousands a month. And so I was losing them so fast, I decided to create the Twilight Brigade, which became one of the largest end-of-life care volunteer programs for dying veterans in American history. And then I co-wrote the standard end-of-life care model that is now the present-day use palliative and end-of-life care model used today by the Veterans Administration. From the near-death experience to being able to control palliative and end-of-life care. When I came to the VA, Danny, in 1984, they didn't have a hospice or a palliative care program. Today they have one, and I am one of its co-authors.
That's incredible. That's absolutely beautiful and incredible. And again, another insight into you and what you went through, losing your life, having the reality shown to you, coming back, and then doing something about it. Sorry, I'm getting a call. I am concerned about our uh, the sound here. I just lost you. Let me find you. There you are. I'm just going to put us on pause for 1 second.
So a lot of the things that I went through, it took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. From passing out in the yard, falling and breaking my nose, and waking up with ants crawling up my nostrils and in my eyes, and blood, and wet peeing on myself, and passing out. My big night out. I have two walking canes. I got a welder's glasses, and I go to sit down, and they bring me egg drop soup, and I fall over in it, pass out. And the only thing that woke me up was it burnt my face, and
Oh,
I'm laying on the floor in the middle of this restaurant. My big first time out of the house in 8 months, 7 months. So I went through that for 2 years. And but also, Danny, look, I've been through open heart surgery and brain surgery and open heart surgery. I had to be clinically resuscitated twice in 2018.
mm,
So all the things that happen to people, that they have reasons, and what goes on in healthcare, I have gone through it. I don't drink or do drugs, and I don't have any craziness about me. I take care of myself, and I'm smart about the stuff that I pay attention to. But when people understand the dynamics of their spirituality and what they have access to in this form here, once they get a grip on that, the life changes. Their world shifts. You're no longer all of this. This is necessary to be taken care of to be able to achieve things. Think of this. If you're over in heaven, right, and you're hanging out at the cloud bar, you're doing a couple of angel shots, somebody says, "Hey, Dan, how would you like to go to a place where you can hug and hold your love?" Because here, love just connects and keeps unfolding. Okay, and it flows. It's flowing through you, and you're flowing through it, and it passes through you. Physically, here, you try to contain it as a value. You're trying to contain it as a value. So over there, they said, "Wow, I get to hug myself.
mm,
Wow,
mm.
what a reason to want to be a human being." So
Ah,
the little things that we fall for to come here are really not childlike, but they show the real identity of our spiritual selves.
mm.
We're playfully wonderful beings.
Yeah, yeah. It's just so incredible. I'm sure you know Greg Braden. I don't know whether you know him personally, Greg
I
Braden.
do.
So years ago, I read one of his books, and it was called Walking in Between the Worlds, or Walking in Between Worlds. And in it, he shares a story. I think he was a 6-year-old little boy. He'd been told, do not put anything in that plug socket. And of course, he did, and got horribly electrocuted. And he said he was lying in bed, and the pain in his body was so incomprehensible, undescribable. And he was laying there alone, looking out at a blue sky, and he could see an aeroplane up in the sky going over. And he said all of a sudden he was surrounded by love, and he felt a woman's arms coming around him, comforting him, and it stopped the pain. And I remember reading that part and just being so blown away, and obviously have such compassion for a little tiny baby boy being, suffering in that terrible way. But it jolted him onto a much bigger journey, much bigger purpose. And
Yeah.
of course, he's gone on to so many kind of different great things. But how does his his what you read, what you know of him, and what you also know about his near-death experience, how does that compare, do you think, to yours, if at all?
Well, I think there's similarities, but we all come from different places. You come together. I mean, this is kind of uh, quasar mystical, but you come together in teams of people. You don't operate all by yourself, and you up here struggling along, being a poor, pitiful, lost in the world human being, hoping somebody's going to love you and all that. You come here because you have a mission, and your skill set is unmatched in what the team does. You are unmatched. The worst person here is the very best there is at something. Okay. And then free will structures itself in such a way where we make stupid choices about a physiological control of a value. If something happens to you physically, the very moment it is physically over, it just becomes a value. It becomes something that you apply a value to it, either intense, lighthearted, angry, happy, sad, melancholy, but it's just the value. It's no longer physical, even if it's a bruise. That's not it. That's a secondary viewpoint of yourself. It's still the value. So when you understand that that's the dynamics of reality, you appreciate living so much freaking more. And you have higher accesses to identities of yourself that are spiritual identities. So, what I was trying to do with the Dannion.com, which is what I decided to put my name on it and go build one of these things that I've been talking about, because watching how the government operates and watching where the hospice is going and watching what's going to be the need, it's now time to make that move. So if I could give people an opportunity to separate from their physical reality and be completely separate from it, where does that take your belief system? It's out of body experiences, sure. But if it can happen, it can happen naturally. Where does that tell you, and who does it tell you are? And how does it affect you? Did you have it? Yes. Okay, you look at people who've had near-death experience. What did they do with it, for it, or about it? I wrote a book called Saved by the Light, Danny, because I got mad. I went on about my life, living with my near-death experience, went through another one, open heart surgery. If Raymond Moody had not come, I wouldn't have had the surgery. My dad called him, and he came over whining and crying like a baby because I was not going to have the open heart surgery. I was not going to do it. I forget it. And when I looked to see what I was going to have to deal with, in the future of it, I wasn't going to do it. So Raymond came. So I went to Raymond's on Christmas Eve, and he didn't have on electricity, and he didn't have on running water, and he had not eaten in 2 days. And the world, a PhD in philosophy, that world had turned on him. An MD, medical doctor, they had turned on him. And a forensic psychiatrist, and they had turned on him. And he was broke. And I thought, there's all those people out there who hadn't lived with it as long as I've lived with it. And I've lived with it to the birth of the near-death experience. And I live through these experiences every 10 or 12 years. I go through these experiences. And to watch that, if they had Raymond, if all those people who weren't strong enough to understand, you can put all the religious crap on it you want, but it's a spiritual experience that happens to you that you cannot deny. You can only talk yourself out of it, which is what everybody else is going to try to talk you out of it. Okay, because it means the truth has to change the model that you're functioning in. Well, I was freaking dead. You cannot talk me out of what the paperwork says. You can talk all you want, okay, but good luck with it.
Mm.
It is this place. I I have the highest ideals and belief in where humanity is right now. And I watched, they're going to try to play this hand again. Okay. Because, like we were starting to wrap this up, this is what they have to do. War is not working. That's all they got. They have to have a war. What happens every time the European Union or the Commonwealth or whatever happens, what happens when they're broke? Everybody wants to attack Russia. If you get Russia, you get all the oil, you get all the gas, you get all the farmland. You know, you finally have defeated Russia. You have the old Polish duchies back, the rebirth of the Habsburgs and the Hohenzollerns, and all of Europe and Eastern Europe will re-identify itself. And they do this mindset every 60 or 70 years. You can look back historically at the culture of Europe, Napoleon, Hitler, all of them look at that same kind of mindset. So these are some interesting times that we're living in. I'm excited to be alive and I'm excited to be here. And I'm absolutely thrilled to get to know you and your audience.
Ah. Oh, that's so lovely. And it's so thrilling for me too. And I know I should probably shouldn't say it, but I'm gonna because I want people to know that I invited you to be a speaker at our next JISIC because you're so beautiful and wonderful and special. You've been around so long, you've seen so much, you have a metaphysical, spiritual understanding that most people just don't. How could they? They haven't lived the life you've lived. And we're going to try and sort out dates. It might work, it might not, because my conference is September 19th, 20th and 21st. But we do hope that you'll be there in some part to be with us and speak to the beautiful, brilliant audience. My God, wait till you see the audience. Unbelievable. From every country on the planet, they come. And they're so full of love and they're so full of their own experiences. It's amazing. You know, that's why we come together. It's a vibratory resonance. But like, even when people fall out, a lot of people are falling out at the moment for whatever, like good friendships. You know, my own inner circle just blew up recently. It's like, oh no, Nelly, you know, but it did, you know, but there's no hatred there. There's a differing, there's a growing, there's a learning, there's a shifting in people. And you just got to step back and give them time, but also look at yourself, right? We're also good at saying to everyone, you need to do that. You're lower vibe. Hello, Nelly, over here, right? We got to check in here, don't we?
I agree, but we got to also remember the universe is changing. There is a shift. There is a shift that's occurring. I mean, the shift is occurring, just like you said, the Mars quake. This, and you look at solar flares, an age is being born. Who are we and who are you in this age? And I hope to explore this as we go. September, that's this year, this
Yes,
2025.
yes.
Okay, I'll have to, I don't, I can't, I'll say yes, but I don't know. I mean, don't,
I
I
know we've
can't
got to
give you
figure
a
out your
firm.
diary with Mel. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. Yay! Yeah, a lot to sort out. Everything is shifting, you're right. And in us, all the shadows that we haven't been able to look at, the things that we're in denial of, you know, because people are so terrified. And I did a broadcast the other day because I've been a therapist for a long time, among other things. I'm also the person that when I walk in the room, for no reason, I'm going to rattle your demons. And I don't mean it. It's a skill I have, Dannion. It's a real,
Hey, I'm thankful for it.
yeah,
Listen, I'm
yeah.
thankful. You know, anything that's in the demon rattling business, I'm for it
I
100%.
know. It's funny. I took my parents to lunch the other day. Today, actually, today we were looking at houses. I found this house. It's the oldest house in the part of Sussex, and it was jumping with energy. And I really wanted it. It was so crazy and wild and beautiful, and it was built in the 11th century and blah 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 blah. Anyway, so I'm not buying it for lots of reasons now. One, my skin couldn't stop itching after. There's so much has happened in there, and I'm a clairvoyant.
Way too much energy.
Too much.
How
My
do you,
skin was on
how would you
fire.
even cleanse that out?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like that's way too many years. But Anyway, I was sitting with them when they came to my last conference in Eastbourne just less than a month ago. And I was saying to them that at my conference in September of 2024, this woman came up to me, right? So I'm the host, I host, yeah. And this woman came up to me. She said, "Oh, Danny, I'm so happy to meet you because, I thought you were a right bitch." It's like, oh, and she said, "You're always, because, you're very outspoken and you're very direct." She said, "But actually," she said, "I'm really enjoying you and you're not as nasty as I thought you were." And I looked at her and I went, "Ouch," you know, and then just laughed, you know what I mean? Because it's funny.
Yeah, but that's that that people have that place to come and be themselves is a safety mechanism for them. When I see stuff like that, it's that creates a safety mechanism, a place for them that who they are, it's safe to be. That
Yeah.
there's safety where I am. There's safety. I know about a lot of things because I'm observant, and life has put me in different situations, and that I have been witnessed firsthand. And so I see how things are unfolded. So, what is the nature of your conference?
So
What
it's
is it?
It's galactic spiritual informers. So everybody has a galactic heritage. Everybody does. And
Yes,
we're also spiritual beings. So we got to bring the two together. And then the informing is a lot of us with our expertise in certain areas. And like I told you earlier, I stand hard on the ground of physical evidence. Like you physically died. There's recordings of it. There's witnesses of it. You can prove and validate your experience. With the Henry Kissinger New Age psyop of New Age wishy-washy bollocks, I call it. People are very confused and get down a road, and some of them are having mind journeys that aren't anything real. But they get locked into it. They're the queen of, they're the last Cleopatra of the Ptolemy reign. They're Alexander the Great. Some people get very lost in a story, and I think there's enough kind of spirits and entities around to help people add to that as well, and take them into. And from the premise of the conference is the true history of our planet and our solar system, the reality of every single thing. So there isn't a subject I don't touch. It is all there to be laid out because obviously we're so censored. It's like the first year that Dr. Christiane Northrup spoke. She could bring all of the evidence of the pandemic and what happened inside people's bodies when they were forced, as somewhere felt forced into taking a medicine that didn't serve them. And some of the pictures of some of the little humans that didn't get to grow, were stillborn, were horrific. But you can't share that online to help educate people. We had to do it at my uncensored conference. So we'll hear a lot of information that isn't already completely out there. You know what I mean? So it's kind of it's multi-galactic and spiritual informing. And the connection, I didn't want to call it conference, Dannion. There's too many other conferences out there. This is a connection. This is people connecting heart to heart, soul to soul. And there's so many people that find their soul family. People have fallen in love. It's just a beautiful
oh,
environment.
that's wonderful. Look, it's wonderful. I did these tours for years because I recruited hospice volunteers. I've recruited millions of people into hospice from doing conferences and programs. I would like to do it. I just like to see the information on it. Send it to Mel so he knows, and
Yeah.
you'll have to put Mel on there also.
Well, I'm going to get Mel on my channel, interview him about his beautiful indigenous connection. He was just telling me about the gathering.
I would be very thankful if you would do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to interview him on my channel for definite. Yeah, no, he's fascinating. He's so funny, like you and your best friend, your best mate for 46 years. I mean, that speaks
Mr.
volumes.
Mebane,
Huh?
Mr. Mebane, his wife of 45 years was the person that was at the hospital the night I was struck by lightning. The guy who was on the other end of the phone her, was married to her then, and he came to the hospital with her that night when I was in 1975. So the history of that night and all the things that happened, she was there.
That's wild. I never knew that. I've heard your story several times and I never heard that before.
Yeah, but she was there. It was Alice Ray who got my hand because I couldn't stay. I was on fire, and I had told her to hold my hand because I kept coming out of my body because of the pain. I could not sustain the amount of pain. I could not sustain it. And I had to have something, and I told her to hold me so I could lock to that to stay in this body that's burning and on freaking fire. It's burning and on fire, and I cannot move it. My fucking tongue is swollen in my mouth.
Oh God.
You have no idea.
Oh wow. Wow. That's my goodness me. And then you went and did it a couple more times. I mean,
Well, the damage done, what the cardiologist said that did this last open heart surgery, if you could see the amount of scar tissue that's on the inside of him, you would never know it was the same person.
gosh.
The amount of damage done inside the kidneys and liver and all that all that lightning, whatever that damage is done, I've compensated for it quite well. But that kind of damage, it's just you don't make it. You don't make it. And if the nails had not grounded, where the nails on top of nails, when that current went through those nails, I don't know if I had not grounded out, I don't know what would have happened. I mean, I would have I'd have blown a leg or an arm or multiple legs and arms. I've seen people struck by cable, by electrical, working on high wire, and it blows their legs off and blows their arms off. And, I've witnessed all of this through the years to come to realize that without any question that you are a spiritual freaking being.
Yeah.
And if you don't get over that and you don't accept it as a reality, then the world around you will continuously be manipulated. And they will do it electrically. It will do it electrically. That's the heads up, everybody. If you're not going to die and you're not this body, and this body has to get electrically faster so that your energy is not slowed down, that the ability to process what this body has to have with all the toxins and all the parasites and all that stuff, and it's what you have to do in order to get the most out of it. You have to detox it. Don't think that you don't. Don't ever think that it's not got to happen. You have to detox it, and then you have to have your trace minerals in it. You have to have your B complex time releasing your system. You do not just do it. The body does three things. It does a compound, a solution, or an enzyme reaction. A compound, enzyme, or solution reaction. It's got to do one of those three things for it to function. Okay, what does it need to do that? It needs trace minerals. So if you're not getting sufficient trace minerals, and nobody is, nobody, then you must supplement your trace minerals. Because in order for the body to do its job, compound, enzyme, and solution reaction, it needs trace minerals. See, so for me, then to not take trace minerals, knowing what I know, would make me stupid. Okay. So I take them every day. When
Right.
my body needs to do what it needs to do, I make sure it has it.
That's beautiful, beautiful. And what else is so beautiful about you, among many things, is the fact that to this day you are still taking care of people at the end of life. You are still very much involved with people in hospice.
I have, I have Mark. I have Mark now. Mark is my 2019 person. And he may have 2 weeks. I don't quite think 2 weeks.
Mm. And you get used to knowing after a while. You can look at someone and you can, after
I
so
won't,
much
I won't miss it. I
yeah.
mean, I get it. I understand the process. Person in transition, people, these are whole classes that I teach about, you can't mess around if you're a caregiver. You got to know what to do. If it's hospice, you have to know what to do. Okay. So you quit messing around and being all emotional and all worked up and all weirded out. Here are the things that's got to happen. Okay. If you cover all these things step by step without getting all caught up in it, you'll know you've done your part.
Mm.
Okay. Because I've been through thousands of these, thousands. Okay. I understand every thought, everything anybody does. I can watch it and look at it and see where it's going to go and how it's going to work out. And I always focus on the person that brought me there, the person that's the veteran that's sitting there. It's always the person that I focus on. But when you get down to knowing that you're not going to die and that you are not this body and you're an electrical being, there needs to be some place you can go. There needs to be a place you can go. Okay. Well, I think that I could create that. I think I could create the system that reinforces where you think you just got. I could create that. I understand how the ethereal self operates. It's very knowledgeable to me. I'm not materialistic. I don't function in all those ways, Danny. I see it for what it is. Okay. And I watch it and see uh, how the value of life operates. Let's see. What that's it. Sometimes when we're doing a show, remind me to ask me a question so that you would ask me what would be the keys to infinite wisdom. Not now, not in this one, but just remember that.
Yeah.
Because then I can frame the keys to infinite wisdom in such a way that people will get the message.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Let me ask you a question that I know a lot of people will be thinking at this moment. Because you have been given the gift and you are a gift also to the people that you sit with as they transition and you protect them, you get them to not be afraid, you prove to them the existence of a beautiful other side of life that continues on in a different way, albeit. Is there anything in particular that you could say that a lot of people, or even most people, go through at the end moments? Like seeing people come, saying their names, that kind of thing.
That's very normal. Okay, two things you look at. When someone starts to see somebody, you pay attention to the calmness in them or the hypertension in them. Okay, if there's a calmness comes, it means it's somebody who's already passed that's given them the safety that it's okay to come home. Okay, that means this is a person that's strong-willed. It's okay to come home. If it's agitated, it's unresolved issues. Or you pay attention to the medication, how much medication on, because the thin line between representation, illusional nature of drugs as insightfulness in preparing to go home. Most people who are comfortable in their religious belief or how they believe uh, will be in the last of it, like most of them, is always trying to take care of the family. If it's the mother, she's still taking care of the family. Okay, if it's the father, it's him trying to understand either where he went wrong or why it happened that way. This is what fathers do. I mean, these are my terms, Danny, because I could see it and I could box it right there in that terminology. So I know what that mentality, what that psychology is and what they're doing. And so you always want to know this. A person needs three things. They need to know that their life had value. You showing up makes that the point. They need to know that their life had value. And if you know them, then you tell them something that you cannot lie. You tell them something about the relationship that reinforces them in their life. Number two, they need closure. Okay. How do you structure closure? You structure closure this way by asking them what's next. Okay. Life is about progression. We have to move forward. Even if you're in this bed, you can only watch so much soap operas. Even if you're in this bed, we have to make a plan to do something. If you get them moving forward to make a plan, there is something out of their past that they'll touch on. And that starts the life review.
Mm.
You grab a hold to that thing that they touch on and you follow it back. Well, what happened then? You bet who then? And once they start that life review, the system is already in play. It's not strange, weird, odd. It's a system that structurally allows the release from this to go back where you came from. So when when that is in place, the other thing is that they need permission. It's okay. And how you set up resolution is this way. You say, look, what is it there that's not going to get done or be done that I could do? So it gives them a focal point of closure to in their last wishes to be in control. I mean, I know I'm not being as emotional as I'm supposed to be and telling people how it works, but this is how it works. And your love and your compassion for that person can operate within the framework of you structuring those goals because you want them to go safely, you want them to go freely, and you want them to go with knowing everything is covered and that they are comfortable in letting go, which is so hard for people holding on and don't want them to leave them and they get selfish and please stay and don't leave me. The
Mhm.
parent or the loved one trying to stay and hold on, conflicted that they are terminal, and all of that stuff that's going on right there is insanity, so unnecessary. And evil has its greatest opportunity to destroy a family in palliative and end of life care. And the greatest destruction is how and what kind of vaccines and how illnesses are structured and what's going on in pharmaceuticals. All of this stuff is being exposed as fast as they're trying to cover it up. So I'm really thankful for you doing what you're doing, Danny.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so thankful for you, Dannion Brinkley. Like I said, I joked about stalking you earlier, but I've been watching you for years and years and often thinking, gosh, I'd love to meet him. I'd love to interview him. I'd love him to speak at one of my conferences. And then out the blue, like I said, our beautiful friend, Dr. Christiane Northrup, she's like, you've got to get Dannion Brinkley on her channel. You
I
see,
love her, Danny.
it's
I love
always the right time. It's always the perfect time. And we worry about things as they're happening. And sometimes they're like, there's so much destruction and friendships are imploding. And then you just trust and breathe and keep on going and send everyone love and keep on going because everything is beautiful and everything always works out in the end, doesn't it?
no, it doesn't because but the joy in all of that is there would if it did there would be no reason for my existence.
Yeah.
See, if it all worked out exactly right, none of us would have an existence. We'd just be a bunch of unemployed dragon slaves.
Mm. Yeah. But
And the
things come.
chaos creates employment.
But things tend to end up being, how they're going to be for the person on that journey. And often it's not quite what we think it's going to be, but most people survive an event until they don't. And if they're lucky, they've got someone like you sitting with them, guiding them, helping them not be afraid of the next stage of life.
But when you stop to think about it, Danny, with the enormous uh with enormous attempts at literally genocide, literally wiping out a planet with that mindset, look at how much grief and bereavement we're going to face in the next 10 or 15 years. People will be losing people because of the jab. People will be losing people. There will be illnesses. Look at turbo cancers. This stuff is, you can't hide from it. There's no way to hide from the simple fact that they are trying to kill you. Okay, you know, it's just amazing. And those people who stand out here on the battleground, I mean, I watch healthcare. I see so many horrible things, but I see also some great and innovative things. But it's people emotionally getting a grip on something that is guaranteed and inevitable. You will be leaving here. Okay. Then you need to see who's leaving and who's staying. You leave in a half a breath.
Mm.
In a half a breath on any given moment, you're gone. You can weigh the body. It may be 3/4 of an ounce lighter. That would be all you ever were in there.
Mm.
See, that's science.
Hmm.
That,
Noetic science, no less, where is it Dean Radin? Yeah, where they've done so many experiments in weighing the man that died and with his permission, and then seconds after he died, before and after, already that he was less because the energy frequency of the soul had left. And
the
yeah,
Russians have been doing this. The Hungarians have been doing this. People have been doing this. You repress it because you can't control the technology that shows the operation of it. It's like scaling a wave, radionics. I mean, we live in electrical fields of energy.
hmm
We live in electrical fields. If you sit in a room, it's a Faraday cage. That's what it is. And you shield because it's current wires running all around you. And then you sit in frequencies and charges, like anything that's charging, anything that's alternating. Once you're aware of that part of you that's the ethereal spiritual part, you find ceremony and tradition like what Mel does. You find ceremony and tradition. Once you realize it, then you ground yourself. You put your feet in the dirt. You walk around and put your feet in the dirt. You ground yourself and you put energy into the earth and you watch to see that energy come back.
hmm
The breath that you breathe and the airs that you breathe, because that creates a grounding mechanism. We all have to have those things, Danny, because the waves of how they're going to throw ops at everybody. You have a war looming in Eastern Europe. You have a war. Okay. The very moment they start talking about the draft, the moment they talk about conscription, there's two things that you watch for. Conscripts. I mean, you get them from anywhere. Okay. All right. Or draft. To draft people, that you draft people because of the military.
hmm
And you watch for that all around because that's a sure sign that what's coming on the horizon. Was I supposed to say that or not or what?
Yeah, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. I mean, we could go another hour on, our thoughts on the millions of men, aged between 18 and 30 from every country on our planet that were coming into America that are holed up, given 2 grand a month on money cards and are being told to wait. They were allowed to vote, which would have made, the president that didn't make it a second term, because obviously he's very, very sick and ill with his brain. And it's happening all over the world. It happened in Britain, and people say, "Oh, don't say the immigrant hotels. That's racist." It's like, just be quiet. There is a plan to take over the world in different ways. And I don't see it working. I don't see the success of it. So much of it's been exposed, but these are things that we should talk about and we should raise the subjects, even if we don't know the entire, as I don't, the entire and complete plan of it.
But you're not dumb enough not to see it's obvious. Look at what's happening in Britain. Those people are all crazy.
Yeah. Well, I live in Britain. I live in Britain and I've come back and I'm like, oh my God, what happened to my country? Because I've lived in America for over 20 years and Hawaii and Costa Rica and different places around the world for years. And I'm back in Britain. I'm like, oh no, Nelly, what has happened? The Muppets in charge. Have you ever seen those in the House of Lords or Parliament? These big old puffed up British chinless wonders. They've been handed their lordships. They've never done a day's work in their life. They're all gay behind the scenes and pretending that they're not, and all that nonsense. And then they all sit and they talk about a peer-reviewed paper or they want to pass a white paper and they've got this way about them and they're all like huffing and puffing and blah, 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 blah. And you watch it and I'm like, are these people for real? Like, that's not how humans behave. All these loud noises and they're like, boo to each other. These are people that are leading our lives. These are
I get
serious.
it.
It's like, oh my God, stick them behind glass, throw some gorillas in with them and have a tea party because it's about, they're as useless as a one-legged man at a butt kicking competition. You know, they're as useless as a chocolate teapot. If I
So do you
put
think
it to you
do
that
you
way.
think that do you think that where do you think the mindset of the middle America, middle Brit, where do you think they are? Brexit passed, and they hate that, and all of it is to undermine Brexit. But why would it be so far leftist?
I mean, there's a lot of people that didn't really understand Brexit. I'm one of them. I've always, because I've known the corruption, the Kissingers of the world, the Schwabs, Klaus Schwabs, the West, the Who, the Gates, the murdering, genociding monsters. So, I'm not, well, I don't believe any of it actually. But if I'm to look at kind of middle Britain, people are waking up in the droves. They are waking up and they are speaking out. And it's like, in some regards, people have to be in so much pain and agony and stress sometimes, unfortunately, to get them to move the needle in themselves just a little bit, to have courage, to speak up and to stop saying to themselves, but I'm only one person. I don't have a voice. I'm like, are you joking me? We need your voice to add to the volume because we bring the
Absolutely.
energy of shifting everything.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing.
Mhm.
I think that the the way that people are seeing here in the States, this Doge thing, the fact that they're exposing trillions of dollars worth of waste, okay? And there's no way around it, okay? There's no way around it. Shows what everybody here, people stop for a moment, they stop and shake their heads. They always knew it was corrupt, but here was the number.
Yeah.
Here was the number. And so Americans are they're festering over that. They're thinking about it, and they think about how in the world did we let it get this crazy? I see the shift, but people have to people have to ground themselves in a spiritual identity, not so much as a religious identity. And I don't see that ufology is not a spiritual identity. The fact that you're not alone is a pretty amazing thing. But like Mel has said, I have had friends that were terrestrial friends. I don't tell those stories, but Mel knows everything. There's
Yeah, he
nothing.
was telling me, sharing your
Well,
secret.
Mel knows everything. So been there. People with webbed feet, clawed toes.
Physical. And these weren't spirits, were they, Dannion? This
No,
wasn't an omnipresent, see-through, ethereal, astral.
that love flat tire beer. True.
I love it. I love
That
it. Well,
love flat tire beer. He would be he would be drunk off of the first half of whatever how his blood chemistry worked. And by the time he got to the third one, he would be two personalities. He'd be like one person, literally one person talking to the other person. I mean, it was cohesive. It wasn't babbling. What I don't know how that kind, what being drunk does to that kind, but I saw him a couple of times do it. But I've seen him walk into a room, and on the floor was this crystal structure, and I've seen him step into that crystal structure, and I've seen him literally turn into a vibration, turn
mm,
to just like a hologram vibration.
mm,
And this is how he would charge himself.
mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, he was in the top of a factory in in Boulder, Nevada. Had a ship in the desert.
Yeah, yeah, incredible. And then taking on, solidifying, slowing the energy frequency down enough to house the physical body that the energy that's him is within, right?
Okay, but think about this. You, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, have to imagine that you are a physical being. You are a spiritual freaking being.
That's
Get over it. There's no way around
yeah, that's
it.
right.
Why I say the best of the best, you have to imagine that you are a physical being 24/7, except when you're sleeping.
Hmm.
Okay, but you have to constantly, when all else going on, you have to think that everything around you is physical, that you are separate from it. When all science and all quantum physics states categorically that's not possible. Okay, so it's not true. All right. When you look at yourself here, you're made up of neutrinos. Neutrinos make up atoms. Atoms make up molecules. Molecules make up cells. So if you put an atom under an electron microscope, it's 99% empty space. You put a molecule under an electron microscope, it's 99% empty space. You put a cell, which you have 10 trillion of them, under an electron microscope, and it's 99.99999% empty space. That means that you are not really even here.
Hmm.
And if you calculate the entire population of the Earth, the entire population of the Earth based on that, all 10 trillion of them or 10 billion of them,
Hmm.
they wouldn't fit in a quarter of a matchbox.
What do you mean?
The entire population of the Earth, if you reduce it down to matter,
Right, oh,
cell,
right, I see. I see what you
it
mean.
occupies so little space that it wouldn't
Yeah.
fill up a matchbox.
But, I have a theory, as many do, I'm sure, that, I don't believe, because I don't believe in anything the authorities that have basically created this false, fake system that we're forced to live in, or we've been forced to live in. Obviously, we're breaking it down and we're kicking it to the side and we're recreating what we want. But I don't believe the general consensus of each country. Oh, there's this amount of people and this amount of children, and I think it's all bullshit. I don't believe it, and I also know for a fact, having travelled as you have to many countries, flown thousands and thousands and thousands of miles over empty land, there's absolutely no way the lie that there's too many people on the planet can hold up. This is about a bunch of muppets that want to control the planet, and if there's too many of us, they can't control us, can they? It's like so obvious. And my dream, one of my dreams, is for people to just recognize their own beauty power, like you, how amazing they are, and that a bunch of shitheads at the top don't get to dictate our lives to us. How very dare they? But some people are still so owned, aren't they? They're more
Well, yeah,
worried about what people think about them than standing up and saying, Oi, John, sit your ass down. I didn't give you my permission and move along, or put them in prison. You know what I mean? Show them what it's like to be told off for a change, or dominated for a bit.
I'm on your side. Have it. You have no problems out of me. Hey, I'm on your side. Look,
No.
mine is this. I I have a I stay in my lane. I care about people understanding how to be a good caregiver. And the fact that you're not going to die and you're not this body and you're an electrical being, but how to be a good caregiver. But in the course of watching how this is all unfolding, how they're going to ID you and how they're going to trap you and how the control of you is going to be in healthcare. It's going to be there, watching what you sign, what you say, watching the lawsuits about people's DNA right now, ancestry, and the lawsuit about buying out the 15 million people's DNA. This is going to be the biggest event. I mean, it's going to be gigantic for people to observe, to see how science is so integrated into their life that not planning and taking care of themselves will be their downfall. We have to take care of ourselves.
Mhm.
Have to. So I think as this world is changing, Danny, and I see people doing what you're doing and followers and the people who are making the difference and who truly see it for what it is and then does something, and does something about it, because I'm on this kick about child trafficking. And it's been this thing that I normally stay exactly where the Dannion brand is. That's what I talk about, what it is. That's what I do. But the fact that little girls go to bed tonight not knowing what could happen next, and the fact that uh, when you're trafficking children and it's a world business, then, and I am aware that it is that, then I have been very upset about it. So I ask everybody that is in this show to stop for a moment. And I'm a big believer in prayer, which is I call willful conscious intent. And think for a moment about those kids and the system of the people that you're describing, Danny. They are the benefiters from that system. And it's that children is the currency that makes the world work. That's insane.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
more and more, I see the evidence of that it's true. So I didn't mean to go off in 100 different directions on this show tonight, but you created a platform. I get a chance to be me, and it's fun.
It's great fun and difficult to speak to such horrific, awful subjects, but we have to. It's our job. It's a reason, it's a mission, it's so important. And like you said, people they don't have to jump and be, a savior, but they need to do something, move the needle in themselves a little bit, have an awareness, know the power, of truly who they are. Well, listen, this has been fantastic. I'm just so delighted to have you on. And I know that they're a lovely audience, and they are such a beautiful audience. They're in the live chat, they're engaging, they're just such beautiful people. And again, building their own community. I took 22 people right before my last conference around the UK or around Sussex, because it's so beautiful. Ancient buildings, ancient
Oh,
churches.
please,
And
yes.
oh, I love it. I hired a coach. It was an absolute bloody fortune, but it was so worth it to travel around the countryside, up and down tiny lanes to these amazing churches that I know, hidden places. And it was just so magical. And then to get a message the other day from a couple of them that came saying that they're all in a WhatsApp group, they're all just so close, they're all so happy, they feel they can share every experience they have in life with each other. And that's just a different way of a community on our planet, isn't it? When you feel safe.
Oh, I listen. I did. I had my time, Danny. I did cathedral tours of Europe, and I would do for from Edgar Casey. I probably did 6 cathedral tours, and I would I would go from ancient Saxony all the way to the most beautiful, and I had it all toured in the Vatican, and so always that when I would do want to do something, I'd figure out, I'd say, okay, this is what I want to do. And I could always get 100 people to go with me, and I would never take more than 35 people. I would never do it because I don't care what 35 people are doing. I can handle them.
Yeah,
I'm not going to take more people than I can handle.
yeah.
I, I would do 2 or 3, but I did cathedral tours and watching watching to see so much of what I'm a big Tataria fan. Okay, I'm a big Tartaria fan because watching to see the difference in the buildings and the architecture and the construction and the structure, and from Baalbek in Lebanon. Okay, everybody says it was the Romans who built that. Well, I've been there. That's a lie. That's a lie.
Another
there's,
lie.
there's no way the Romans could have done it. Never, never. They couldn't do it today. They couldn't quarry the stones today. Okay. So I've been there. I saw that. That means, people are crazy.
People are
So
crazy.
I've enjoyed this. I look forward to coming back on your show. I hope to see everybody in September in Charlotte. I have to work all that out. And so thanks for having me, and thanks for allowing me to be a little late, Danny.
Oh, my love, you're welcome. Thank you for honoring me, with your energy, with your connection, with some of your story. It's so big and vast. We barely touched the sides. And it was great. And I can't wait for us to play again together. Definitely. Thank you so much. And to you beautiful guys out there, I know you're going to thank my ass. I know you are. I know you're going to say, thank you, Danny, for bringing on Dannion Brinkley. And I'll say back to you, my love, you are welcome. It's my joy and my honor to. So I send you, as always, love from my heart to yours, everyone. And I will see you soon.